What's going on, guys? It's the Cubeologist here, and today I'm going to show you how to properly set up a MoYu Pyraminx. So, as far as I can tell, this is everything that I'm going to be using today. I've got a file. You can use anything from like a fingernail file to the edge of a knife, a screwdriver, which is pretty much a necessity, Phillips head, heavy lube in the form of, this is weight 5 silicone from the Cubicle, and I've got some light lube in the form of MoYu lube. But you can just use heavy lube or any silicone lube you've got. The only thing is you can't only use MoYu lube. I know that this actually goes away pretty quickly if you lube the core with it, so if you have to only have one lube, I would go with a silicone lube. Alright, so first things first, you can see here that I've actually spent some time with this puzzle already, and the reason that is because I have tried 2 or 3 different ways of setting this puzzle up until I found one that I liked, and now I'm going to show you guys that method. So first things first, let's get this thing apart. You want to twist a cap, a tip, just like that, and pull it from the edges. Make sure not to grip under it though when you're pulling, because you can actually break this piece. So just grab it by the very tips of the edges and pull up. And then, since we're going to be lubing the core anyway, go ahead, take your screwdriver and remove this screw. So once the screw's out, you can just pull that out with all the hardware. And then you want to be really careful here. You see this ball bearing? That can actually fall out. So when you take the centers off, just set them to the side with this side facing up. These other ball bearings don't really fall out, but this one can, along with the spring that's under it. So just set those aside like that with the ball bearing on top, and then go ahead and disassemble the rest of your Pyraminx. Alright, so now that you've got your Pyraminx completely disassembled, you want to go ahead and take a look at these pieces. So this is the piece that the screw was in, the one that you actually unscrewed from under the tip that came out of the centerpiece. So what you want to do is go ahead, push the screw up, and pull everything out, including the washer. So you'll have this long screw, the spring, and the washer coming out of this piece. So the first thing we want to do is take your heavy lube, some type of weight 5 or something like that, and I don't know if you can see or not, but there's actually 2 ridges down in there. You want to go ahead and put a little bit of lube on both of those, not a lot. We basically just want to make it so that the washer will stick in there and the head of the screw can spin freely if it's tensioned pretty tight. So go ahead and do that. Then get your washer and find the shiny side of it, like usual. You want the shiny side pointing up. So this is how I put them in there, on the tip of my lube like that. And then just put it down until it sticks down in there. It's hard to see, but it's actually right down in there. And then you want to take a little bit of lube and put it on top of the washer. Now that's the more important part than the lube under the washer, because this actually gets rid of the spring noise in your Pyraminx, and that drives me crazy. So there we go, we got that. Then grab your screw, pull the spring back, and put a little bit of lube right here on the top of the screw, right under where the spring spins. If this seems pretty familiar, it's because this is done on most every puzzle with springs and screws in it. It cuts down on the friction and the spring noise in your puzzles. So once you've done that, go ahead and place your screw back in there, and then go ahead and do it to the other 3 pieces. So once you're done with these 4 pieces, go ahead and grab a centerpiece, and make sure you hold it with your finger over the ball bearing, like this, and flip it over. So while you're holding your centerpiece, if you can see here, there's actually a lip down in there, right there. You want to put some lube, about that much, right down in there. Not enough to be gummy, but just enough to completely coat that. And the reason we put that lube in there is because the core actually fits directly in there, and that's where it twists. So just to cut down on friction, you want to have a little bit of lube in there, but not too much as to gum the cube up. So then you take your core, place it in there like that, set it down. Then take one of these pieces that we've already prepared, drop it down in there like that, and tighten it to the point where it won't come out. You don't actually want to tension the cube now, you just want to secure it. Once you've done this step, go ahead and do it for the other 3 center pieces, but make sure and put them in the correct orientation, otherwise your Pyraminx will not be solvable. Okay, so at this point you should have something that resembles this. It's solved on all sides with the centerpieces, and they're all attached to the core. Now, the next step is to take a look at the edge pieces. So this step is where I actually found some flash on the cube. And what I mean by flash is leftover plastic that's not supposed to be there from the molding process. I know a few of you guys have asked what that was, but you can see it kind of right here where I took it away. There was a small bump right there, and that actually rubs against your centerpieces. So you just want to go ahead and completely flatten all those places down at this point, and then you want to attach them correctly to your puzzle. So if you did this the way I said and didn't actually tighten it, it should be fairly simple just to push these pieces in like that. And what you want to do is do one whole layer. So now we're looking for the red and yellow piece. That's right here. And then the red and blue piece right there. And then turn your puzzle up like this, and then you want to put in two more pieces. So we're looking at the red and green, and the green and blue. So then you've got your puzzle to this point, and it looks like it's mostly assembled, but I want to stop here and do some lubing on the pieces. Alright, so now you've got your puzzle assembled to this point. What you want to do is turn the top about 60 degrees like that. I think it's 60 degrees. Anyway, then you want to take your heavy silicone lube and put a little bit down in the tracks on this centerpiece. That way, the edge pieces can flow smoothly along that. Alright, so now you've got lube on the bottom there. And then you want to take this piece, find out which goes on top, so we see that it's this one, and lube this track right there. Like that. And then put this last piece in. So now you have a puzzle that looks like this. It looks like a fully assembled Pyraminx, but we still want to pay attention to the tips. These parts are actually not functional, as in they don't really even contact the puzzle other than the very small lip around the edge. So in order to make your tips feel good, which is one of the problems that people have with the MoYu Pyraminx, are that the tips are a little bit slow. So in order to make your tips feel good, you want to actually put some lube between this piece and the top of the centerpiece. So in order to do this, I turn this piece like that, 60 degrees, then I grab all the edges with one hand and pull up. And you can actually get enough leverage just to hold it with one hand, like that. And here's where you want to put some MoYu lube, or any thin lube that you might have. Just put a drop right under it like that. You can see there. And then work it in and turn this until it feels smooth and fast. You can do this with heavier lube, but you want to use very little lube because you don't want to make this slower than it already is by gumming it up. So once you've done it to this side, go ahead and do it to the other four. So now that you've got all these pieces properly lubed and the inner pieces completely lubed, we want to get to tensioning the puzzle. Now, unlike a 3x3, you can't just pull this apart and check. What you have to do is you take this piece and pull up. And that shows you how much you've tensioned the cube. As you can see, it's very loose still. So what you want to do is you want to check all the sides and see if there's any that are uneven. It looks like these are fairly good so far. That one's a little bit tighter than the others. So I actually want to loosen it at this point to make it even. Because what we want to do is just, there we go. What we want to do is just make all of them even at first. Alright, so that looks pretty good. And now you want to fill the puzzle. You can actually turn it at this point and it's going to feel really loose. So once you've got all these even, you can go ahead and just start doing full turns on these until you get them the tension you want to. You want to do a full turn on each one until it feels correct. So full turn, full turn. There. There. And then after you've done a full turn on all sides, you go ahead and test the cube again. And that feels a little better, but I think I'm going to do another half turn on all of them because it still feels a little flimsy. So now I've done another half turn on every side, and we're going to test it out. And that feels really good. I'm not very fast at Pyraminx, but I can tell when a cube feels sturdy enough, and that tension feels really good. So then you want to go ahead and put your tips back on correctly. Now there's only one thing left to do to a puzzle that performs this well. Let's see here. One of those guys. And we're going to put it on an edge piece here. And there we go. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Bye.